6 fish keeping tips every beginner must hear. So the first tip is to keep live plants. Plants not only help reduce ammonia levels, they also provide a very natural environment for the fish. This is something a lot of beginners overlook, but live plants are something that you must have. In other words, an aquarium without plants is like a world without trees. They are the natural foundations of a fish tank, and their benefits are endless. They lower ammonia levels, produce oxygen, create a natural environment for the fish, and make your aquarium much more healthy. Another great thing about plants is that they actually use fish waste as a fertilizer to grow and prosper. There are hundreds if not thousands of plants that are suitable for aquariums, and they come in many different forms. There's floating plants which stay at the top, rooted plants which get their nutrition from the substrate, and stem plants which get their nutrition from the water column. My second tip is to do your research before getting your fish. Now, if you've already gotten them, then try to do your research right now. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. Some fish require warm water, others require cold, some need to be kept in hard water, others in soft. Some do well in a planet tank, others do not. Some will need a sponge filter, others do well in any filter. Some need a blah 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 blah. You get what I mean. You have to do your research. Don't make the mistake I made. When I went to get my first fish, I didn't care anything about research. All I cared was whether the fish looked good or not, and none of those new fish I got lasted long. So the second tip is to do your research. The third tip is to not mess around with anything once you've set up the tank. I've noticed that a lot of people, especially beginners, like to move things around once they've set up their tank, waiting for it to cycle. This is probably the most common things we as fish keepers do. We try to get everything neat and tidy so that it looks perfect. But in the case of aquariums, try not to mess with anything around once you've set up the tank, waiting for it to cycle. This includes not moving around the plants, decorations, etc. Just let it sit there and nature will do its job. This is especially important when you're waiting for it to cycle because it needs time to get things kicked in. Once it's done cycling, it will be safe to add fish and plants. And this brings us to our next tip, which is to not add too many fish or add them in too soon. When your tank has just completed cycling, it still needs time to build up more beneficial bacteria for the fish. If you add, let's say, 12 all at the same time, the newly formed aquarium would not have enough beneficial bacteria to combat ammonia, which comes from fish waste. The correct way to do is to add fish, but only a few at a time. So instead of getting 12 all at once, you can buy 5 this time, wait a week, and then add the other 7. This way, the beneficial bacteria from the new tank won't be overpowered by ammonia and it could slowly build up. It's also a good idea to test the pH by using test strips or those water test kits. I prefer using a test kit because they tend to be more accurate. You can get these from Amazon for just a couple of dollars. I use the API test kit. It works pretty well and is very easy. So the fourth tip is to not add too much fish or add them too soon. Now let's move on to the fifth tip, which is to not overreact to algae. What I mean is you don't need to remove every single speckle of algae you see. Reason for that is because having some algae in the tank is actually good for a fish's environment. In the wild, you never see a body of water that doesn't have algae. As long as it isn't too excessive, they will not harm your aquarium and can even benefit it. For example, if you go somewhere for a couple of days, your fish can rely on the algae as a food source. Remember, algae is a plant and plants are a part of a fish's diet. Occasionally, I guess. Another good thing about algae is that you can use them to detect changes in water parameters. For example, if there's an algae bloom, it could mean that your ammonia levels are too high. Algae grows abundantly in high lighting conditions along with nutrients it needs for survival. The sixth and final tip is to just enjoy your aquariums. The whole point in keeping fish tanks is to enjoy nature and its wonders. Many people have struggled with depression, anxiety, addiction, illness, the list goes on, and the fish keeping hobby and its community provides relief and a sense of purpose. Having an aquarium is like getting a slice of nature in your home, and I've gotta say, this hobby and this community is amazing and has changed lives for the better. Thank you all so much for watching, enjoy your aquariums, and have a great day.